people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Although I've had 9 fights, the company I've mixed, and even from my second fight, Gangloff, she was a world youth medalist. So I've been chucked in early, I've been chucked in deep, and sometimes that kind of gets overlooked. So I think I've boxed about 4 former world champions, maybe 5. So although I've only had 9 fights, I always match up, the quantity with the quality. So, I'm ready to make another mark. So I'm going 10-0 on Saturday with another strong opponent who's, 20-0 and coming that's hungry. She's got nothing to lose, and that's always dangerous in a fighter. So, Saturday night, I'm not looking past, and I know it's a tough fight I've got in front of me.
Ellie is completely right. In just 9 professional fights, she's faced some formidable fighters and at least two reigning champions with more fights and more rounds and more pro experience than she has, and she's made it look easy. She really has been thrown in the deep end.
Catford.
She'll be facing her mandatory challenger this weekend on the undercard of Dalton Smith's next fight. She'll be facing unbeaten Mia Motu, who sports an unblemished record of 20 wins with no losses, no draws, 8 knockouts. Clearly more fights than Ellie Scotney, but not more quality.
35 years old, the young Ellie, who's 26.
Undeterred by Mia Motu's menacing grimace, her menacing smile earlier today, Ellie Scotney is all business.
Her first fight of this year.
Off to an early start. She saw action 2 times in 2023 and only once in 2024. She's off to an early start this one, which leaves the door open for more fights in the calendar year, provided she wins this weekend.
I think she's going to. Mia Motu is best described as a scrapper, a strong one, physically strong. I think she's a harder puncher than Ellie Scotney, but there's more to winning a boxing match than a hard punch.
Mia perhaps is a physically stronger fighter than Ellie, but not a better boxer, not by any stretch. So Mia has been a bit more busy than Ellie. She saw action 3 times in 2023, 2 times last year, though not against the same caliber of fighters that Ellie Scotney has been fighting. The last time we saw Ellie, and I believe it was in April of last year, she was in there with an unbeaten champion. Whereas the last time we saw Mia, a bit more recent, in October of last year, it was against Shannon O'Connell, who took the fight on short notice. Veteran journeywoman Shannon O'Connell, who already had 7 losses going into the fight with Mia.
Mia stopped her in 4 rounds, scored a technical knockout. She was beating her up.
Goes back to what I said. Mia Motu is a hard puncher. She's got power, she's got that, and toughness. But what I think is going to win Ellie the fight this weekend are the little things. That Ellie is noticeably faster than Mia Motu. Punches are shorter and sharper, not as wide as what you see from Mia.
Not as telegraphed.
Ellie's punches are comparatively shorter and sharper, and thus more defensible. Harder to defend against and harder to counter.
Thus more defensible. Defense definitely has to go to Ellie Scotney. Ring IQ, ring savvy has to go to Ellie Scotney.
Speed, focus, movement, agility.
Catford.
Ellie, describing Mia Motu, said she is non-stop. Talking, that is. I have full focus on Mia, but the plan is to collect all the belts and become undisputed. On Saturday night, I'll shut her up. And still, if she delivers on that promise, she'll have plenty of time remaining in the calendar year, barring illness, injury, or unforeseen circumstances, to squeeze in 2 more fights with the 2 other champions at the weight. Yemi Mercado of Mexico, who's got the WBC, Nazarena Romero of Argentina, who's got the WBA. Of the 2 remaining champions at the weight, the 2 others, I would say that Nazarena poses the greatest danger to Ellie Scotney.
The greatest threat.
I'm settled on the idea that Ellie would out-hustle Yemi Mercado, but that might prove a more difficult assignment against Nazarena, because Nazarena's fast, and she's strong, she's explosive. What she lacks in subtleties, she makes up for in raw power and aggression. Could definitely argue that this weekend's fight with Mia Motu, who is of a similar ilk, is great preparation for a potential Nazarena Romero fight. This is a rehearsal.
Good prep.
Was supposed to have originally gone down last year on the undercard of Jack Catterall versus Regis Prograis, but I believe that Ellie Scotney suffered an injury resulting in the fight being postponed. Now here we are. It's upon us. This weekend, I expect Ellie to win a points decision, out-hustling me in Motu. As it usually goes in an Ellie Scotney fight, she makes things look relatively easy. Even against seasoned and experienced opponents and strong punchers, that's what's consistent with Ellie. And hopefully 2025 turns out to be a busier and more productive year for the unified champion than 2024 was, because she only fought once. Hopefully, she can unify the division this year. If she can get the fights, she can do it.
Rumors abound. Boxing insider Rick Glaser took to his social media to address the recent gossips about the PBC and their potential sale.
Presently, there are a lot of boxing internet rumors floating around. Ever since I announced that the PBC was going to be jettisoned by Amazon Prime in May, it's been floating around social media that Turki El Sheikh is buying PBC. To the best of my knowledge, after conferring with several, that is simply not true. And to those I have spoken with, PBC is not getting dates on DAZN. Are PBC's fighters going to be on Turki El Sheikh's events? Yes, like they are going to be on other promoters' shows, like Keith Thurman traveling to Australia to fight Jock Barvis. Rolly Romero is fighting Ryan Garcia in May in New York City on an event presented by Turki El Sheikh. PBC fighters will be at best opponents on those events. That's all PBC fighters are these days. Overpriced, B-sides, inactive opponents, and the PBC fighters will be cannon fodder for the whole world to see. Let's keep score and see how many PBC fighters actually win these fights. It'll be very few. But I'll do everyone a favor and I'll keep score for you. And please leave a comment letting us know how many rounds you think Rolly Romero goes with Ryan Gersha. Enjoy your Thursday.
So you've got Carlos Adames defending his WBC title against Hamza Shiraz. Carlos is a PBC guy, so is Sergey Lipinets. He's going to be fighting Adam Azim very soon.
That's two.
Keith Thurman is flying out to Australia on what really is a No Limit Promotions show to box Jock Barvis.
That's three.
Montes Stanionis just signed on to unify titles with Jaron Ennis in a few weeks' time at Atlantic City.
That's four.
Rumor has it that Lorenzo Colli may be facing heavyweight danger man Luis Ortiz in his very next fight.
It's five. That's at least five PBC fighters I can think of off the top of my head that are being outsourced to other shows, other promoters' shows. And it is sort of like Rick says. It looks like, outside looking in, the PBC guys, the ones that are being outsourced, don't stand a very good chance of winning a majority of those fights.
The rumor
I heard earlier this week, the one that's been getting around, it's not that the PBC was sold to Turki El Sheikh. The way I heard it, the contracts are what's being auctioned off.
The stable, not the brand.
There is no value in the brand, thus there's no reason to purchase it and potentially take on whatever debt that brand has incurred. What you can do is scavenge the stable, what remains of it, what fighters might still be under contract with the PBC. You can pick them up individually because they're not the ones in debt. The brand is. In any event, that's the rumor, and that's what's been getting around, and we'll see if it checks out. We'll see if it turns out to be true. Even if it isn't, it may as well be. How many of these PBC fighters are being outsourced to other shows from other promotional outfits where the PBC used to be very protective of their fighters, their assets, ensuring that they stay on their side of the street. Those days are gone.
Their entire stable of fighters is all over the place now. Those days are over.
In keeping with the forecast I gave you here on the channel a little over a year ago, that it's going to reach a point to where the PBC ain't got no money and no fight dates. So what they're going to have to do is outsource those fighters. Those fighters are basically going to float away to whatever other promotional outfit can use them. And that's what we're seeing now. The amount of fighters that you see popping up on somebody else's shows, the PBC could have did their own card, their own show with that number of fighters. But if they didn't, it's really because they ain't got the money to do it.
To accommodate all these guys.
By loaning them out, they can take a small percentage off of the fighter's purse from whoever's paying them and make money that way. I don't expect this calendar year to be any better than the last one was for the PBC. In fact, I expect it to be worse because now they don't have Canelo Alvarez. Rumor has it Canelo has inked a 3-fight deal with Turkey El Sheikh.
The exclusive broadcast partner of Riyadh season shows is DAZN.
If Canelo signed a 3-fight deal with Turkey, that would render whatever arrangement he had with the PBC obsolete and useless. He has no use for them.
The last 2 fights he had, they didn't even provide him the opponents. Jaime Munguia, Edgar Berlanga, those guys are with other outfits.
So when you consider that the PBC only did 5 shows last year, and 2 of them were Canelo Alvarez fights, and this year they won't have his fights to put on anymore, they're in a bad way. And this calendar year might be a worse one than the last one was. So even if the gossips and rumors that we've been hearing the last week or so aren't all completely true, it's still just as bad.
It's the same difference.
Whether you've auctioned off your stable to somebody else, or the only way that you can keep them active is to loan them to someone else, either way it's the same thing. They're boxing under somebody else's banner, not yours.
We're at the beginning of the year. Matchroom has already rolled out a comprehensive schedule of fights. They've got 2 shows this weekend, 2 of them. One in the UK, one in the US.
They announced the Jaron Ennis versus a Montestanionis unification match. They've announced the ring return of Ammo Williams.
They've announced some Olympians they recently signed. In addition to Tara Moana, they've assigned America's own Omari Jones.
This is just for a retrospect. This is just for a contrast. Look at how much stuff Matchroom is rolling out and how much news they're rolling out, and compare that to the PBC.
And how much news they're not rolling out.
How many unbeaten fighters and how many standout amateurs they're not signing. Compare it.
Bitch.
It's not looking good. So it really is more doom and gloom in the month of January at the start of the calendar year for the PBC. They just don't seem to have very much going on at the start of this year, like they didn't have much going on for most of last year. And it just is what it is, I guess. Finally, in men's super flyweight news. Bam Rodriguez eyes a May return, a unification, and then Junto Nakatani says trainer. Jesse Bam Rodriguez could return to the ring in a unification fight in May, according to his trainer, Robert Garcia. Rodriguez, 25, made light work of Pedro Guevara in November, stopping him in 3 rounds to defend his WBC junior bantamweight title. He has yet to announce his next move. Garcia, however, revealed that he had been informed by promoter Matchroom Boxing that Rodriguez is likely to fight again in May. Bam wants a unification fight, and hopefully the champions are available, because that's what he wants, Garcia told Boxing Scene. Well, it's gonna have to be any of the champions because we don't know who's available. Argentina's Fernando Martinez, the WBA champion, and WBA champion Fumalela Kafu of South Africa are both options for Rodriguez, 21-0 with 14 KOs, according to Garcia. Rodriguez, a 2-division belt holder, favors a unification bout with Martinez. Garcia added that Rodriguez could also be tempted to move up to 118 to fight any of the title holders there. We'll focus on unifications, and then maybe our step will be at 118 against Junto Nakatani, he said. That would be a huge fight, and Junto is a great fighter. Bam wants to do the big fight, so if any of the champions are available to move up in weight, we'll move up to fight them. Garcia embraced the possibility of Rodriguez moving up to take on Japanese star Naoya Inoue in the future. When asked how he expects a fight between the 2 heavy-handed fighters to play out, he responded, Inoue is very, very powerful, very smart in the ring, very technical when it comes to landing his punches, and very accurate.
Let's talk about the state at super flyweight currently.
Fernando Martinez, who was unified champion not that long ago, ended up surrendering his red belt to the IBF as a result of his commitment to a Kazuto Ioka rematch, which is currently being rescheduled. He's still committed to that fight, so the IBF title is vacant at this time. Fernando's got the WBA, Fumalela Kafu has the WBO. I remember hearing 2 months ago that Fumalela may be facing Chocolatito in defense of his brown belt, but as it stands, that fight has not been officially announced, and those rumors have not materialized, so theoretically
he could fight him.
Though I am a bit disappointed that they're talking about Bam's ring return being all the way out there in May. That's 5 months into this calendar year. I would have hoped to see him in action sooner, but if what he's waiting for is a unification match for one of the other champions to be available, then it would make sense that he wait until May to come back.
I'm getting impatient.
I have to admit, I've been waiting on Matchroom and Bam to unify this division for a while now, and maybe I'm just being petulant. Maybe it's just me.
I just wish there was more progress.
They're also entertaining the possibility of moving up to 118 pounds, pursuing a title up there, and having a showdown with Junto Nakatani, 3-division champion Junto.
He's got the WBC up there. The other 3 champions at 118 are nowhere near as experienced as Junto or as talented, and they're nowhere near as experienced as Bam or as talented. Theoretically, Bam could target any one of them.
He could target Seiya Tsutsumi for his WBA,
This guy only has 12 professional fights.
Ryosuke Nishida for his IBF,
He's got even less. He only has 10 professional fights.
or Yoshiki Takai for his WBO. He's the same as Ryosuke Nishida. That guy only has 10 professional fights too. You could give Bam very good odds against any of those champions. It's the fight with Junto that's the dangerous one. But Bam could theoretically let that fight marinate a little by picking up one or some of the other alphabet titles that the other guys got to make his fight with Junto a unification match.
It's not like Junto Nakatani is on the eve of moving up or pursuing another fight at another weight. He isn't. He's staying put. He's staying right there. So maybe Junto fights one of these champions and maybe Bam fights another. Then they meet up with each other for undisputed.
And then whoever wins that fight between Bam and Junto moves on to a Naoya Inoue fight. Though all of this is many months out. I mean, this is way out there, and you don't want to put the cart before the horse. Forecasting a fight so many months out, who knows what's gonna happen? Maybe Junto looks human. Maybe Bam does.
Anything can happen.
These lower divisions, these lower weights, are getting more coverage, more attention, and more money is flowing through them in this era than in any era before it. Americans traditionally don't pay attention to the lower weights, but the Japanese have done a fantastic job of breathing life into these lower weight classes, and they've essentially cornered the market on them, that the preeminent market for a flyweight or a super flyweight, a bantamweight, a super bantamweight, it really is in the Far East, in Japan.
What are you saying?
That Bam Rodriguez versus Junto Nakatani might actually be a bigger fight in Japan than it is in America, because Americans don't traditionally watch 115 pounders or 118 pounders.
Bam still has ties to taking promotions.
That's how he got his start, and that could service as a bridge, a segue of sorts, to make the fight possible, because, well, here in America, Junto's promoted by Top Rank and Bam is promoted by Matchroom, whereas in Japan,
They're both promoted by Taken.
both guys are looking fantastic at their own respective weights. Bam at his and Junto at his. It's very hard to forecast a fight between them and how that would play out. They're both strong punches and great boxers.
Great acumen, great ring savvy.
I don't really know who would win. Bam still has to prove that he can hang with the best of them at 118, and he hasn't done that yet. They are merely entertaining that possibility that if things dry up at 115, they'll go to 118.
I'm not against it.
It would be a pity that he would have left all that unfinished business behind at 115. If things ain't working out, they just ain't working out, and you have to move on.
Roll on Junto Nakatani. Roll on a move to 118.
Look for Bam's ring return in May, whoever it's against.